unknown.
Those are serious looking mics, Peter.
Yeah, but all very serious here.
Well, we get those thrust in our face when we go to Radio Cumbria, which most often actually they record us on the telephone. But we do occasionally get to go to Radio Cumbria in Carlisle.
Oh, good. So, well, first of all, we might, we've got to say to the listeners that we know each other through Boccia, and you are a very good referee back in the day. So, again, as I start off with every interview, is an introduction. So, who you are, what's your job, all that sort of thing, really.
Okay. Right. Hello. My name's Anne Cradock, and I have been involved. I first met Boccia in 1984 when I was a PE teacher in a special school in Birmingham. And I was introduced to it both at the mini games, which I'm just trying to remember what it was in those days. BSAD, I think it was, or was it? Yes, it was BSAD, before Wheelpower, and David Tillotson, who was then an England coach, came to the school, and actually he followed me into the school that I worked in when I became an advisor. So I met Boccia then, and we played it, of course, at the mini games, which I think, I'm not sure whether it was mini games or the junior games where I first met you, Peter, when you were very young.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was National Junior Games at
Yeah, so you'd have been 11 then, probably.
11, 12, yeah, something like that.
Yes, and you were always very competitive in anything that you did, with a smile.
Yeah, I really love the smile.
I can remember you, I think it was you playing. No, did you play David Smith at Stoke
No,
Mandeville?
no, that was Lewis Hammonds who sadly passed
Oh, that's
since.
right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
but I remember you well in your school team.
yes, you do. Yes, yeah. And you had various jobs throughout Boccia.
Yes,
You
yes,
mentioned that you were a PE teacher, you were a referee, and you were a member of the Boccia England board.
I was. But before that, I was also, well, I still am a national classifier, and also what's the other one? I was referee, classifier, and tutor for the Boccia Leader Award as well. I wasn't a coach, just a teacher.
Yeah. And well, you mentioned one of your previous jobs already. You were a PE teacher, which
Yes.
wasn't a while off before.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you get into PE teaching? Was it?
I trained at Anstey College of Physical Education in 1965, a long time ago, and I worked obviously in mainstream schools teaching PE until I had my family, and then when I went back into teaching, there was a post in a special school, Braze School in Birmingham, and I got a post there as a PE teacher, and I then did some advisory work in inclusion, looking at including all young people in physical education, which obviously is one of my passions.
Of
And
course.
Boccia is one of the answers to that passion. And then I also worked at the other Victoria School, the Birmingham Victoria School, for 5 years. That's when I met the other Victoria School, where a lot of other Boccia players come from, at Stoke Mandeville. And then I followed on at Wilson Stewart School until I retired. And actually, that one of the questions you asked was whether Tim was involved from the early years. No, he became involved when I went to Wilson Stewart School, and he became employed there too. And that's how we were then both involved with mini games and national junior games, national athletics, national boccia. And of course, boccia, as you know, evolved through, before Boccia England, and Boccia England was 2010, I think, started. Before that, we had, I forgot, CP Sport Boccia.
Yep.
And before that, there was something else. I can't think what it was. It was England Boccia, but it wasn't wasn't formalized, and certainly the training courses that are available now, from grassroots right up to international, is fantastic. I mean, in terms of teaching, coaching, refereeing, it's fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's loads of ways people can get involved through volunteering with them now, compared to back then.
Oh
Massive,
yeah.
massive amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know it's not just Boccia that I remember you from. You did table cricket.
I certainly did, and Tim did too. Yeah, we again we became involved in table cricket about 90. It was Ken Black and Doug Williamson who established table cricket. Ken Black was working at the Youth Sport Trust at the time, and Doug Williamson obviously was a senior lecturer of physical education at Nottingham Trent University. And I don't know whether you ever knew my friend Chris Harris, but she was the swimming teacher in the school and ran the West Midlands swimming squad. And she had heard someone talking about this table cricket. She said, "We need to get into this table cricket. I've heard about it." So I contacted Ken, who I knew, and said, "We want to get involved, please." And we were involved in the competition from the very start. And so, as well as playing it as a school, we were involved in later on, after our retirement, we were involved in running the competitions and teaching it. And as you know, passionate about table cricket too. Yes. Yeah.
So did you get involved with Boccia and table cricket? When was that? When you retired, you got involved?
No. I was involved when I was still teaching
Oh,
to
okay.
begin with. Yes, both in boccia and in table cricket. But when we retired in 2002, that's when we had the freedom to travel. We travelled from one end of the country to the other and one side to the other, promoting and developing inclusive sport, including table cricket and boccia.
Yeah.
And it was honestly, Peter, as you know, we had a lot of fun. We made a lot of friends. Most of the players are our friends, and the families are our friends. And we just, I mean, people say what we did, but actually we got as much out of it as the people we supported, really.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Obviously you're well known in the boccia circles for your refereeing. Many years. Could you? I mean, I don't know if you were refereeing players that are now in the England squad, Great Britain squad. Is there any sort of name drops you can give us?
Yes. Well, I have to say that all of the current GB squad we have refereed, and most of them since they were very young. People like Jamie and Scott were just little boys from Scotland. They roared even then, but we've seen them grow up. David Smith, we've seen him grow up. And in fact, David, last year, I told you about the Women's Institute Village Hall boccia that we've got. After the last year's Paralympics, we got funding together to enable him to travel up to Cumbria, and we had him at Kendal Leisure Centre demonstrating boccia to both the local schools and to the women's institutes. And then he went on from there to a William Howard School in Brampton in Cumbria, which they're very big in table cricket and boccia. And they pay for him to stay overnight there. And then he went on up into southern Scotland to Dumfriesshire to their boccia club and demonstrated there. So yes, most of the in fact, all of the GB team we know very well and have seen them grow up as people and in boccia. And many of the international players too, we know, people like Gregor, is it from Greece? Yes. All of those, but we weren't we were not international referees. We chose not to do international referee training. We supported them, and obviously at the Paralympics we were national technical officials. We were timekeepers, but we thought if we're going to go and get on an aeroplane, we're going on holiday. Yes. So our refereeing doesn't go abroad; it stays in. But we did do some international refereeing because Sandra King, who was the organizer of the boccia at the Paralympics, before the Paralympics, about maybe 6 years before, ran the Cheshire International competitions at Wigan. And in fact, we were involved in that, fully involved in it, because we used to do the meet and greet when somebody met them. Well, it was Zoe Robinson's family met them at the airport, the teams, as they came in, and we drove to the hotels and met them at the hotels. So we did that. So we got to know the international players very well too, and we follow them obviously on any international that's going on. We watch as everybody else does, now.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yes. Yeah, and so your biggest achievement, I'm assuming, would be London 2012.
Oh, absolutely! It
Yeah.
was it was not just biggest achievement. It was the one of the epic moments of our lives. It was fantastic. It was such a joy, such a thrill, and to be, well, you won't know this, but when we were being trained by Pedro, the head referee, beforehand in our meetings, he said, we're going to send you into the table tennis competition where there are 7,000 spectators, because you will have 7,000 spectators watching your boccia. And I have to tell you, that is terrifying prospect for us. I mean, we're used to about 30 to 100 people watching our boccia. To have 7,000 was just horrendous. So yes, it was an amazing and wonderful experience. It was happiness. It was boccia at the very highest level, of which there is a lot of boccia at very high level now. It's fabulous.
Yeah, very high level. Yeah. So how did you get involved with that? Did Boccia England sort of give London to have some other staff, or how did it? What was the
Right.
process?
Well, there was a whole process for 2012 Olympics and Paralympics. You had to apply as a volunteer. So we actually went to Gateshead to be interviewed. This was before we were allocated our sports, because you probably know it wasn't just table cricket we were involved. We were also supported athletics, swimming, wheelchair basketball. We did the World Juniors and the Worlds in Birmingham as volunteers. So we had to first of all go to be interviewed as volunteers. That was the first thing. And then we had to choose our sport. Well, for wheelchair basketball and swimming and athletics, we were not officials. We were volunteers. The basketball, for example, we had the responsibility for dishing out the water and that sort of thing. It was whatever role has to happen. And but for boccia, we were qualified referees. So we opted for boccia. And then once we were selected, we then went through the first one was we were accepted as volunteers to the Paralympics. Then we applied, and it was a long time before we knew that we had been selected to be national technical officials. And then we went through a rigorous amount of training, and of course the testing event as well in May, where it was freezing cold. I'll never forget. It was so cold because we were not in a proper venue. We were in tents. It was really cold. It was really cold. But yes, so that's how that happened. We were not paid. We were paid expenses, our traveling, out of pocket expenses, travel expenses, and so on. But there were people who were paid, but we were not on the paid staff. We were the volunteers.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, we had all the fun and none of the responsibility.
Yes, of course. Yes, that's a very good thing as well. And so, coming on from that, so when obviously we spoke about this before the recording, you carried on refereeing with your husband Tim.
Yes.
So how long have you and Tim been doing refereeing since the very beginning? I'm assuming both of you at the same time.
We've both been referees since we retired, really, since 2002.
Yeah.
So over 20 years.
Goodness.
Yeah, but it was we only did it because we loved it. We really, really loved it.
Yeah, of course you are. And so yeah, okay, and you do VI boccia in
Yes.
your hometown.
Now no, it's the WI Women's Institute. That's what we do. But you did mention VI boccia because I actually refereed the first visually impaired boccia competition, nationals, in Sheffield. I can't remember the year, but it was the year that the other groups were introduced, a BC 5 to 8. That was the year. That was the year that that VI Boccia was introduced. And whenever we did any training, we introduced the grids, because most mainstream school have children with visual impairment. And in fact, I haven't got my grid at the moment. It's at a secondary school in Settle, because they got a boy there who could play, and I said he can have this grid because then he'll be able to play. So I think that it was underdeveloped for a while. There were issues to do with copyright of it. I think it was over a number. You know, it didn't quite belong to Boccia England because somebody else created it. And it was together with Loughborough University were involved. There were a number of organisations who kind of claimed ownership of it, and that sort of inhibited the development of that. Although it was never going to be international, it was only in England, and well,
yes,
really, that's right. But so that has a huge part to play still as alongside goalball, I think. But that's underdeveloped still. I think that's what's waiting there in the wings to happen now.
Yeah.
The Women's Institute Boccia in 2019, we decided that we were going to try to introduce Boccia into all village halls through the Women's Institutes, because many, and they are national. I mean, the Women's Institute have 200,000 members. Yeah. And I'm not sure how many institutes there are, but each county has, for example, we have over 70 institutes in Cumbria. Blimey. And all of them meet in village halls. So if we can get a boccia set and somebody trained into every village hall, then then the young people who've got the potential to be Paralympians, who are in mainstream schools, might meet the sport with their family, and then we'll find them. Because otherwise they don't know. People still say, "What's boccia?" Yeah. I mean, not anybody who knows me, they don't, or you. Yes. But so we trained 14 boccia leaders in our WIs. So we'd got 14 WIs ready to go, and we were locked down in March 2020. So we what we did was, we'd already got one boccia club running. That's in Orton, and so we revisited it and refreshed everybody. And so we've got 3 clubs up and running every week playing boccia in the afternoons. And the people who play them are men and women, and they're people who've played sport in the past, but now can't run, can't play cricket. And in fact, we've got 2 of our WIs who haven't yet got their clubs up and running. But what's happening is a lot of village halls, you may know this, Peter, play short mat bowls. Okay. But one of the WIs we went to, the president's husband came along, because he said, I do short mat bowls in Bolton and Malsmeaburn Village Hall, but some of the ladies now can't pick up the balls, they're too heavy. But they could play this. So he's got some boccia sets, so that half the hall will be short mat bowls and half will be boccia. So, you know, that's so. And the other 6 trained people are playing boccia occasionally. They aren't playing all the time yet, but we've got 3 full-time clubs out of it so far.
Well, that's brilliant. That's progress.
It is, absolutely.
Absolutely. And so you've retired fully from
officially from refereeing, yes.
Yeah.
But we obviously referee our own. I mean, last May we had a boccia festival, and our boccia clubs came together, and I crocheted their medals because we don't have any money. So they all and Katie Gatt came and refereed, and Tim refereed. So we had team competition and we had individual competition. And this year we're going to do the same again. We'll have the full sports hall this time with 2 boccia courts, and we also play pickleball. And you're going to say, what's pickleball? Do you know what pickleball is?
No idea.
Right. take a badminton court,
Okay.
put a low net on it, paddles that are rather a bit bigger than a table tennis bat, they're carbon fiber, and an airflow ball. And it's a bit like badminton with a paddle and an airflow ball, and it is great fun. So the people who can move around a bit more can play pickleball, and the people who need a seated game will play boccia. So that's what we're doing.
And so going from London 2012 to Rio 2016 and then on to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tokyo being a different time zone, and some of the matches were like early in the morning and all that, and the coverage was on Channel 4 and online. How did you find, because I know every now and then you go onto the Boccia and Facebook and you go, what's the result? Or what are the scores? So how did you find the Paralympics 2 years ago?
I think it's still moving forward. It's still better than it was, but there's still a lot more that can be done. We just need to be able to even if we can't see the live matches, because it won't happen that all of them will be videoed, broadcast, but it would be good if we could access it somehow, on like on television when you do what's it called, playback, is that playback?
Yeah, something like Red Button or something.
Yes, if they could, so that people could find. I mean, we are most interested in obviously the GB players, and that's the matches that I would like to see. And they aren't always on the video courts, but if we can't see it, if at least we can get the scores live. So I think it's up to the organisers really to communicate. I mean, there has never been better time now than to actually communicate with people. I mean, and examples of this are that now, for example, even the what was the one in Northern Ireland they had recently, Challenger Series, for example. We're even getting those and the Boccia England ones and the nationals. There is more now for us to see. I mean, that's the one thing about, we're able to get our women's institutes to go. I send them the details of when there's a competition coming up, so they can watch it.
Yeah.
And see the range of players. They know that the people who play at Paralympic level have to have a classifiable disability and also be classified according to their ability. So I think I would say that it is much better now than it ever was. I think it's improved every time, but I think there's still more that can be done in terms of, as you say, we get frustrated because I'm shouting at the screen because I can't see it. I'm sure that everybody's the same.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, and so and were you always with Boccia England? You were never with Boccia UK?
No, there wasn't any such thing. There was GB Boccia, but Boccia UK is new. And I was never with GB Boccia either. Although having said that, we used to go and referee their competitions. So yes, we refereed them, but we didn't work for them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And so going on to Paris next year, and then we've got LA 2018.
Right.
What are you hoping got to be like in 10 years' time? What are your hopes?
Well, I've seen in the last 20 years a huge progress in terms of the quality of refereeing, because the standard of refereeing determines the standard of play to an extent.
Yeah.
The rules, I mean, people are always amazed at how detailed the rules are, but they have to be. It's a hugely intellectual sport, and the quality of the referee respects the players, the athletes. It's their sport, and the spirit of play, Richard always made a lot of, and the spirit of the game is what Boccia is about. It's really very important. So I know that there will be highly qualified officials at all levels, from head referees down, internationally and nationally, and right to the start of play, because if they know the rules from the start, I mean, Sandra King was was the head of PE at Trelaw School, and David Smith went to Trelaw School.
Yeah.
And I remember refereeing those young people at Stoke Mandeville, and my goodness, they knew the rules. And that's really important. So the referees have to, in those days, some of the referees did it just casually, but that doesn't happen anymore. Any national competition now will have qualified referees, quite right. And the same with coaches. I mean, 10 years ago, there were no coaching awards worldwide. I mean, I have to say that Richard Evans is largely responsible, working with the GB teams of people, for developing coaching awards. And so, as in many other sports, our boccia internationals will hopefully, some of them, become coaches themselves.
Yes.
Because that's as it should be, as it happens in other sports. So that's what I hope will happen. It will continue to flourish as a game. I still hope, it's my passion, that it will be in every village hall, because it is such an inclusive game.
Yeah.
And everybody, I mean, we were out last Thursday night at a little village in the Howgills, and I mean a little village. Their village hall was only about twice the size of most people's lounge, but we played boccia and they loved it.
Yeah.
And the advantage is that they're very close to us and to Orton. So already there are 2 boccia clubs that they can go to. That's what we need for our young boccia players.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did mention table cricket for a brief while. Obviously, the viewers will hopefully know a bit about boccia, because I mentioned it a few times over the last few weeks on the radio, so that's fine. But could you briefly explain what
Table cricket
is?
Yes, right. Well, I always say that the people who play boccia and table cricket are not those who can play wheelchair basketball or wheelchair tennis. These are people who have much more severe physical disability. Take a table tennis table, put sides and an end on, some fielders on the side to actually field with, a small proper cricket bat, a bowler at one end. So you actually have a game of cricket on a table tennis table.
Yeah.
The young people who play it absolutely love it. It's a great game. It's exciting. It's fun. It's a team game. It is an entirely appropriate. It's also a known game for young people with not just intellectual impairment, but also autism. Sometimes, you know, they can learn where their place is. And anyway, I would say to anybody, Google table cricket and find Lords, and you'll find some videos to watch. It's a fabulous game.
Yeah, and we should mention that this is the Lord Taverners.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah, that it's a school tournament basically.
Yes.
Mainly. Yeah.
But we did for, I'm just trying to think now when, about 10 years ago, we met in Carlisle. There is a youth centre called the Youth Zone, and we discovered that all over the north of England, a group of businessmen have taken run-down factory buildings in city centres and built them into youth centres, and they are fabulous. So we got involved with training staff in those youth centres to include not just table cricket and boccia, but also the experiential activities that more profoundly disabled people take part in, and their volunteers in their youth clubs actually help them to do sensory activities, for example. So it isn't just schools; it is youth centres as well.
Oh, lovely to hear. And we mentioned Stoke Mandeville a few times. Obviously, we know what that is, but others may not. So, Stoke Mandeville is the work of Gutman.
Ludwig
Gutman.
Right, yes.
Years ago, you know, was a doctor and he came over to work on the injured people, and when he got wheelchairs, I mean, he made this massive thing, and it was the home of the Paralympics for London 2012 and all that. And could you explain briefly National Junior Games?
Right. Well, Stoke Mandeville, as the centre and the host for the first Paralympic Games,
Yes, it was.
became a centre where wheelchair basketball teams and swimming teams and athletics teams came together to practice their sport. I mean, those games, the swimming, the athletics is just the same as everybody else does. It's just that you're competing in a classifiable group. When I first went down there to the mini games in 1984, and we stayed in the old huts that had been part of the Paralympics. But dormitories, I mean, for children, it's so exciting. It's any children, not just disabled children, to stay in dormitories and stay away at a sports event is fabulous. And even then they had a big sports hall and a swimming pool and so on, which became gradually bigger over the years, and they gradually replaced the dormitories with more hotel type accommodation, which is what people expect now. They don't expect to be roughing it in a dormitory.
Yeah.
They like their own rooms, which is probably right, it's developed. But it is a beacon, I think, of Paralympic sport is Stoke Mandeville. And in fact, I noticed even today, a Facebook message was they are offering across the whole nation elastic bands.
Yes.
For people to do fitness activities with.
Yes.
So that they continue to promote. They continue to move with the flow and to promote inclusive sport, as well as providing a centre. I mean, I noticed now that Boccia England are doing some of their squad training there, which is great, as the wheelchair basketball people have and so on. So again, people should Google Stoke Mandeville and or even go and see it if they live in Buckinghamshire. But we like you, we ventured there at least twice every year for the mini games, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, is the primary schools. Yeah. And the children under 11, and the national junior games, which is the secondary schools.
Yeah, and I'm on secondary schools games quite well. Going there every day with Eamon, and it was just like a fun week out of school, really.
That's right. Well, but actually, it was developing your sport, all of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And learning new sports. I mean, there were constantly the hand cycles and all of that sort of thing being brought in. The running, what were they called? We still have them. In fact, I think it's a world championship running. They run in a frame, not just holding frame, but
walking frame. Yeah.
Yes, Beth Molan was one. I've forgotten what it's called. Gone out of my head. But anyway, Stoke Mandeville is very much at the front of innovation in terms of inclusive sport.
Yeah, and we should say it's not just Boccia they do wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair hockey, slalom, which you did a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just one sport, it's all table tennis,
right.
A lot,
Polybat. There's another one alongside table tennis is polybat. There's always an adapted game.
Yes, there's always a sport for everyone there.
Right. Yeah.
And it continues to thrive today as well. So.
Absolutely, it does, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's everything. So thank you for joining us.
That's a pleasure, Peter. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. I'll just stop recording and then we can just sort of wrap it up. Stop recording.